Your Werewolf, and I'm here today to give you a heartwarming thanks for being one of my listeners and one of the supporters of the show. Last year was amazing. We had 94% increase in numbers and all those exciting things, and the Instagram accounts and TikToks and what's the other one? Twitter, X are all good, and I really like the Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group that you can join. All the links are down in the description, and people talk about the most random shit, but it's cool, and it's all about werewolves, so life's only so good. Thanks to everyone who's helped us out last year. A host of actors, a host of authors, and a host of mental health practitioners. Thank you. So, I'd planned that this story would be 2 episodes, that it would just be, well, I actually planned it would be 1 episode, and then it turned into 2 episodes, and now I'm afraid it's turned into 3. So this is the 2nd episode in the Christmas special, which has kind of turned into the New Year special. So, please go back and listen to the Christmas special, and then this one might help out a little bit, really, with that, if that's okay. Thanks, bye. You see, the history of St. Nicholas, Bishop Nicholas, whatever, is a little dodgy and fun. He was born in AD 280 in Patara, near Myra, in modern-day Turkey. How come he lives in the North Pole now, then? Have you ever been to Turkey? It's like lovely and warm, and it's got nice beaches, and it just seems such a better place than the North Pole to live. I don't know. Is there some weird coincidence between why we now eat turkey at Christmas and the fact that he was born there? These are the questions no one really needs to ask, I suppose. We know St. Nicholas of Myra was a Christian monk, but otherwise we know very few details about St. Nicholas's life. Even the year of his death is not certain. The fact that he died is not certain. The Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches have celebrated December the 6th as the date of his death for centuries, but we have no idea what year he died. Maybe he's immortal like that professor bloke I know. If it's all to do with December the 6th and that's such a crucial date, why is he out and about on the December the 25th then? Just so many questions. What we do know, though, is that within the century of his death, the much-admired St. Nicholas had become the centre of many folk legends or miracles, depending on your religiousness, whatever. Some of the things that St. Nick are credited with are acts of mercy, like stopping a violent storm to save doomed sailors. The sailors had wandered into shallow waters and were foundering as they could not manoeuvre back out of the dangerous shallows. Saint Nick arrived on board as a glittering image after the sailors had prayed for help, and then he helped the sailors sort the ropes and the rudder out to help them get back out to sea. Nick then disappeared once they were safe. When they arrived back in the port of Myra, St. Nicholas was waiting for them just down there on the harbour. They thanked him for his help, but he told them to thank God for allowing him to help. Of course he did, the pious bastard. He still liked the fact that the story got about, though, eh? Bishop Nick was also good at eliminating demons from old temples and shrines to older gods. He'd got his bishophood, is that how you say it? Quite young. I wonder what he did for that. He would exorcise the demon, in inverted commas, by demolishing the buildings, statues, or the things that were non-Christian. I mean, he was definitely exorcising demons. He wasn't just getting rid of the competition by smashing up other Theo's thoughtful things. I'm not sure about that one. He also exorcised a cypress tree of demons. Yeah, he got the demons out of it by threatening to strike it with an axe. Seems legit, a tree full of demons. He would have looked a bit mental doing that, right? Stood next to a tree waving an axe and telling the demons to feck off. These days he would have been gently led away to his own little cell and not been allowed to use anything sharp, just in case of the demons. No, not the pencils, Nick. Use these crayons. They're just less dangerous and might not stab people in the eye. Another story he was famous for was buying some prostitutes. Wait, did I read that one? What? Is that on Wikipedia? Good lad. Oh. Thank fuck he had that side to him, eh? Ah, no, sadly no, he didn't buy them in that way, you know what I mean, don't you? He didn't buy them, he didn't buy them to, to do what you do with prostitutes. He didn't buy them to fuck them. Sorry, you'd worked that out yourself, my bad, of course. Of course, Bishop Nick donated money to a father forced to sell his daughters into prostitution, and the father repurchased them. I think the dad probably needs to take a good hard look at himself there. He had to sell them into prostitution? Really? That's what he had to do? I'm afraid that dad's a bit of a... He also made himself famous for bringing back to life a trio of boys. That's 3. Yeah, I know, I'm clever. Who had been dismembered by an unscrupulous butcher. 3 children had been playing in the woods and wandered back into town, where they were grabbed, chopped up and put in a large salting tub. 7 years later, St. Nick came along and told the butcher to open the tub, saying, "I know what is in there." Huh? 7 years later? Seems a bit of a long time to wait. I mean, those poor families had probably done their respective grieving and moved on with their lives. Maybe had some kids and were not financially in a position to then suddenly gain another family member or 2. Seems a long time, 7 years, doesn't it? I mean, did he know they were in there for 7 years? He's, just couldn't really get round to getting there and sorting it out. Nicky boy must have been a super busy saint, I suppose. I love the fact that the murderer is described as an unscrupulous butcher. Unscrupulous? That's not an unscrupulous butcher. I mean, an unscrupulous butcher doesn't murder children and then chop them up to eat later, does he? I mean, that's a cannibalistic fuck of a butcher. An unscrupulous butcher may put his finger on the scales when weighing his products for customers, or add too much sawdust to his sausages, not sell you like a salted human being. Although, I have to say, if dry brined correctly, human flesh has a somewhat piquant taste. Today, Nicholas is considered the patron saint of sailors, children, wolves, pawnbrokers, etc., and the inspiration for the figure of Santa Claus. So he's the patron saint of wolves then. No, he doesn't protect wolves. No, he's not going out there and saying, "Don't kill the wolves." He's not an early ecologist. He's the patron saint of protection against wolves. He doesn't protect wolves. He fucks them up. If I needed genuine reasons to be here to kill him, which, as you know, I don't really, this would be one of those. There has to be more to this man, you see. Has to be more to this man. What can we tell from the rest of history? I do like this particular story, though. He punched a priest. I know, brilliant. He punched a priest who tried to tell him that Jesus was human and not a god, so he turned the other cheek, and no, Saint Nick didn't turn another cheek. No, Saint Nick didn't simply ignore the fool. Oh no, he punched a cunt in the head. Brilliant. Such a Christian ideal. The guy's fame grew as we moved into the Middle Ages for all these reasons and more. Well, maybe not for punching a priest. Once dead, whenever that happened, his skeleton was split up into small pieces and spread as holy relics to hundreds of churches around Europe and beyond. There is probably so much St. Nick's skeleton out there that if we got all the bits back together, we would have several St. Nick skeletons on the go. I wonder if any of those bones are actually legit. What do you do with a holy relic anyway? I get, the idea of, the Holy Grail, the cup of Christ, drink from it and live forever. But how do you use the toe of Nick? Do you suck it to get a lovely Christmas or something? As the word of Saint Nick spread further into northern Europe, his stories got absorbed into the Teutonic fairy tales of elves and sky chariots, murder, infanticide, and death in agony. Oh, God. Those were proper stories, weren't they? Do you miss them? In the Netherlands, the spelling of his name became more Dutch-friendly. Sinterklaas was always seen as a tall, burly man in red clerical robes who would give gifts of lumps of coal to children on December the 6th. See? He was a good guy. Catholic priests should get some lessons off him, shouldn't they? Do you know what I mean? Catholic priests give other less wanted gifts than coal, although the kids who got coal were lucky bastards, weren't they? I mean, I would have killed for an actual lump of coal when I was a kid, and they got it if they were naughty. Lucky bastards. In this phase of his folktale life, he would be taken to the children's homes by boat. Yeah, boat. No idea either how it goes to homes without water. But hey, as the Europeans go west, to the Americas, the stories of Sinterklaas went with them. It was thought that he started his rise to fame in the Hudson River Valley, where a large population of the Dutch had settled. The story of Santa Claus, grew, and his bearing of gifts spread through North America. We can see the effect his story or history had through pieces of literature written. Washington Irving mentioned that St. Nicholas was a large portly man who flew through the skies and dropped gifts down children's chimneys in his book, A History of New York. It was released in 1809. Again, coincidentally, on December the 6th. In Washington's book, St. Nicholas appears in the vision of none other than Olaf van Kortlandt, the first of the Van Kortlandts to set foot on what was the New Amsterdam in 1637. In Irving's imagination, Van Kortlandt's decision to settle on Manhattan Island was actually inspired by jolly old St. Nick himself. Are you ready for some culture? Here we go. And the sage Olaf dreamed a dream, and lo, the good St. Nicholas came riding over the tops of the trees in that self-same wagon wherein he brings his yearly presents to the children. And he descended hard by where the heroes of Communipaw had made their late repast. And he lit his pipe by the fire and sat himself down and smoked. And as he smoked, the smoke from his pipe ascended into the air and spread like a cloud overhead, and Olaf bethought him, and he hastened and climbed up to the top of one of the tallest trees, and saw that the smoke spread over a great extent of the country. And as he considered it more attentively, he fancied that the great volume of smoke assumed a variety of marvellous forms, where in dim obscurity he saw shadowed out palaces and domes and lofty spires, all of which lasted but a moment and then faded away until the whole rolled off and nothing but the green woods were left there. And when St. Nicholas had smoked his pipe, he twisted it into his hatband, laying his finger beside his nose, and gave the astonished Van Kortlandt a very significant look. Then, mounting his wagon, he turned over the treetops and disappeared. And Van Kortlandt woke from his sleep greatly instructed, and he aroused his companions and related to them his dream, and interpreted it that it was the will of St. Nicholas that they should settle down and build the city here, and that the smoke of the pipe was a type how vast would be the extent of the city, inasmuch as the volumes of its smoke would spread over a wide extent of the country. And they all, with one voice, assented to his interpretation, excepted Mynheer ten Broek, who declared the meaning to be that it would be a city wherein a little fire would occasion a great smoke, or in other words, a very vapouring little city, both which interpretations have strangely come to pass. Yeah, that's where New York is now. So apparently Saint Nick is the founder of New York. It's nice, isn't it? So why does the saint now give his gifts on the day of Jesus' birth? Well, it turns out, as with many of the Christian holiday things, that they sort of just adapt other relevant stories to fit the one that's in the best of their books. Gift giving and St. Nick were linked to December 6th, but that would change. In pre-Christian times, when other religions were in the charge of the world, the shortest day of the year was a necessary time to be celebrated. It was at the turning of the seasons. Although we've got little evidence of gift-giving due to a lack of historical evidence, we can assume that Jesus' birth date has sort of changed in European countries to coincide, strangely, with the Yule holiday of the pagans. Those sneaky Christians. Jesus does not have the date of his birth mentioned in the Bible, but theology and philosophy had guessed dates from the Annunciation mentioned in John when Mary was 6 months pregnant. This would put the Saviour's birth, considering that his pregnancy was not of a different length due to his divinity. This would mean that his birth would have been in spring. It also links in with the shepherds moving their herds out for spring grazing, perhaps. Gift giving has also been a big part of the new year throughout Roman history, so the good Christians brought this all together and made up the date of the 25th as the date to celebrate the birth of the Son of God. And so now what we do is buy each other materialistic gifts and eat and drink into unconsciousness to pretend to celebrate Jesus' birth that would actually be sometime in March, probably. What a hock of shit. What would Jesus actually think? So St. Nick needed to go. Yeah, he did. And that was why I was here in this family's home tonight. Santa Claus had to go. Death was going to be my gift to the world tonight. I'd already murdered the lovely family, and it hadn't even been very much fun, to be honest. So after a quarter of an hour of historical bollocks, let's get back to where we should be. Spread around the room was a dismembered group of 4 that had been on my naughty list that night. They hadn't really been on any list, they'd just been there and in the wrong place at the right time. The decorations that now covered various surfaces were of a more sort of sticky, fleshy type. Scraps of said flesh hung from the tree and blood pooled on the laminate flooring. It's definite laminate, honestly. It works out that the colour theme for the Christmas decorations that the mother had chosen that year was still held in various shades of red, though, and interestingly, that green wobbly bit there, that I think is maybe the bile gland, made a passable bauble as it tried to drip from the tree. I'd not taken my time in the killing, and pleasingly, the room looked as though the bodies had somewhat kind of like detonated with an explosion more than been shredded by Claus. We stood and looked at the results. We, of course, means me and Fenrir. Even Fenrir, my wolf soul buddy, had to admit that it was an aesthetically pleasing heap. I now just wanted really to get onto the main event, which I hoped would be St. Nick himself. As I was taking on the role of the murderous Grinch, no, it's not that I hate Christmas, the holidays, or whatever you want to call it. It's just I kind of wanted to pit my wits against this non-existent, maybe existent father of Christmas. I was sure it would be a worthy fight. I mean, he must be some sort of semi-demigod sort of level to be the man he is, should he not? Sorry, I'm assuming his gender there, and assuming that he's a man. Like, take a fuckload of injected testosterone to grow that beard seen in the pictures. Or maybe it's a fake one. I don't know. Murder, if you think about it, is a heavy concept. For death to be a murder, it requires that I have killed without any justification for doing so. Whose justification do you need? Oh, I know about human rights and shit, and governments and societies and laws and shit, but fuck them. The description of the noun for murder is the unlawful premeditated killing of one human by another human. Make of that what you will. I mean, unlawful. AI can't kill or murder then, can it? Okay, but I suppose, am I human? Probably not all human. Actually, if I am in my werewolf or wolf shape, then I can kill anyone because I'm not human, so the resulting murder description is not murder. It's just, killing? The description of the verb to murder is very similar to the nouns, but it does not mention the human aspect of the crime. It's the act of unlawful or unjustified killing. As usual, what I do with facts like that is that I don't like is I tend to ignore them. So we'll just gloss over that and sort of describe and pretend that what I do is okay. We've been waiting for a long, long while now, and we're getting bored as the night lingered. Fenrir had gone on a ghost-like journey around the home and was being his usual nosy self. If you're a regular listener to the podcast, you know that Fenrir is my best friend, a soul of a wolf that died a couple of thousand years ago in a big shamanistic ritual where he combined with another human to form one of the first werewolves of the Russian tribe. He's a bit like a father figure to me, and we go through the world together in a state of terminal bliss, doing just what the fuck we want. Most of the time we get away with it. Sometimes we cannot. And it tends to be that what gives us the interesting stories. He's invisible. Yeah, he's invisible to everyone except magic beings, other werewolves and nutters. He also has no physical presence, so he wanders through walls and shit. It's very useful. I mean, if he was invisible and a physical being, then it would be a case of picking up furniture and people every time he turned around, because he's enormous. He's like the size of a small pony. That's probably about right. So thank goodness he's non-corporeal and stuff. I looked around for something to do while I waited for the big SC. I expected the delivery as soon as the family was gone, and that wasn't the case. Time would need to pass. I wandered into the granite work surface kitchen, stopping at the gigantic American-style fridge to look at the family pictures there. Always funny how what can be a beautiful, secure life with plans and a bright future can be fucked up in a second. The little smiling family picture that I now held in my hand had them all little and smiling at the camera as they smiled and looked happy. I smiled, folding the photo and putting it in my pocket as a keepsake. I've killed so many people now that I can no longer remember the faces of those who met me before the deaths, so if I get a chance to take a picture just for a future scrapbook or something, you know. The rest of the pictures on the fridge were a bit shit. They were all scrawled in crayon, and to be honest, weren't my thing art-wise. I did have fun with the magnetic alphabet that they'd put on the side of the fridge, though, leaving a little confusing message for the investigators. Douglas did it, I tried to spell out in my amusement. Sadly, I didn't have enough D's, so I had to scratch the second D in the did into the paintwork with a teaspoon. Kinda worked, kinda. I searched the cupboards for anything other than milk to drink. Of course, there were the IPAs. That would be the craft brewer's thing that every middle-aged man of a certain pay bracket seems to have these days, but they were of no interest to me. I did find a bottle of ignored sherry, cooking sherry. Fuck it, why not? I might as well drink it. It's Christmas. And while I poured myself one, I poured another, taking it over to the shelf of Santa shit with its milk, half-eaten carrots and mince pies. I was sure the old guy would want something a little stronger than milk. It was a miserable night out there. I mean, God, milk. I then sat in the remaining uninjured blocky armchair sipping my sherry. It was actually quite lovely. Maybe I should add sherry to my list of likes. It was sweet and smooth. As I sipped, I noticed there was a TV mounted on the wall. It was a bit blood-spattered, but I reached for the remote thinking I could at least, watch one of the old two Ronnie's Christmas specials, or maybe a Morecambe and Wise. That'd be good. Probably not a good idea. Will Santa come if you sat watching telly? Formed in my head from Fen upstairs. Grudgingly, I replaced the remote control on the slightly sticky coffee table and drummed my fingers on the charm's armrest as I looked around the room for something else to do. See, in the stories you get the condensed version of what's happening. A murderous werewolf's work is much like the work of a police person. Long periods of fuck all happening, then short periods of complete mentalness. It would be a bit dull to talk about these times and nothing though, so I don't. But remember, if you're going to take up the killing and murdering, that a lot of it's boring and it's about waiting. It's not just all the stabbing and biting and shooting, and most of it's waiting for stuff to happen. Yeah, it's a bit dull. Finally, there was nothing for it. I would have to just sit and wait in this state of boredom. I had the sherry, so I poured myself another helping and sipped at the warming liquid as I thought of the moments when I'd cut the family up earlier. In my head, I was being very self-congratulatory. I was very good at killing people now, really was. Recently, I'd killed a lot of people and not fucked up that much. The remnants of the couch and the family then struck my interest. The conglomeration of the bits of family members at its centre had been a sheer accident in the end, but rather delightfully, the four heads of the humans had produced a very pleasing visual pile at the focus point of the piece. As you know, if you've bought my excellent, brilliant, amazing self-portrait book, That's it. It's on Amazon. It's in the links in the description. I am one hell of an artist. One hell of an artist. In fact, I would say that I am the finest artist that has ever existed. No, I'm not bragging. That is a valid argument. And I'm willing to meet you in person to have a short argument if you wish to be as bold as to disagree with me. The heads had landed in a sort of social normative order. The two children rested on top of mother and father. The looks of terror and anguish of the father and mother were counterbalanced by the sadness and the shock on the faces of the children. It was quite beautiful. The flickering light of the Christmas fairy lights from the tree really brought some kind of unusual movement and life, strangely life, to the cooling pile of bloody goo and the faces of the family too. Douglas, the fat comedy black Labrador, farted under the table. Yeah, where he had decided he would settle out the way. How amusing a flatulent pet can be. Although the smell he created was a little much for my highly tuned sense of smell. Will, see this? Fen had called me to notice something he'd found upstairs on his wanders. I sent my consciousness up to him and looked through his eyes. He was in what I assumed was Mum and Dad's room. The room was full of frequently used objects on the surfaces that had been frequently used, and although tidy, I could see that things were frequently moved around it. I could see it was a busy room. In the centre of the large room was a king-size bed, and unusually it was somewhat higher from the ground. It was also a sort of four-poster bed with a weird canopy. As I looked through the wolf's eyes, the eyes went under the bed to where there was a steel cage. A steel cage with attachment points at its centre. Fen then moved to look at the posts of the bed itself, and that they had attachment points and roped cuffs at several points on them. That was brilliant. Mr. and Mrs. Bland Vanilla were actually Mr. and Mrs. Exciting Chili. Ah, shit. I wish I'd have known this before I'd killed them. We could have had at least a fun chat, if not more. They were kinky. I love kinksters. Well, I hope they were kinksters. Shit. If not, then I wouldn't want it to be a naughty child in this house. With a smile, my sherry glass in one hand and the bottle in the other, I returned my mind from there to my seat in the front room and was sitting next to the giant wolf soul, who was plainly as bored as me now he'd come downstairs. I waited for things to happen. There was no chimney in the modern home, but I'd been told that even the father of Crimbo had modernised somewhat and that he would still manage to access the house if necessary. Fenrir and I were talking shit about stuff. As you probably know, I recently lost my home in a fire. Yeah, back in episode whatever. As a materialistic narcissist, that hurts, so we were planning on the new garage of cars that would be putting together at the new residence I'd just bought in the country. Yes, the new country, dear. I thought I'd get out of that Manchester place. Then Fenrir's voice in my head stopped as he got distracted by something. I looked at him and he nodded at the strange white dots that batted around at the glass of the windows at the front of the house. It rebounded a couple of times from the glass, then seemed to slowly force its way from one side of the glass to the other. We were both now kind of captivated as we watched the flashing white dot float around at what seemed random, like Tinkerbell in the Peter Pan Disney film, if she'd been a bit pissed. The dot made its way to the soulless bags placed below the tree for presents. Each had a name on it and it was fucking massive. What happened to stockings? These bastards had sacks. Then there was a ding, like a lovely little tiny bell going ding, and a big fat fucker was standing in the lounge looking at the tree and a list he had in his hands. Standing beside him was a filthy little green and red dressed Santa's elf, maybe. This wasn't your Lord of the Rings elf by any means. This was a sour looking little half human looking creature with big pointy ears and a big fuck-off nose. It was skinny and looked like it was the loser in 100 battles with angry cats. It was somewhat shocking. Father Christmas, however, was the perfect Santa from my dreams, childhood, and imagination. He was so perfect to what I imagined in my head that he looked almost like a cartoon. He was decked out in the red and white outfit and had a pair of half-moon brass-framed glasses on the end of his nose as he perused the list.
Ho, ho, ho. Oh, upstairs, under the spare bed.
I hoped he got that right. It had to be the spare bed. It had to be the spare bed. Don't look under the other bed. The spare bed. He said that as he pointed up and then down to below the tree where the empty space had now become full space. Obviously, he transferred the presents. Presents abounded, nicely stacked and ready for Christmas morning. Yeah, Christmas morning when they would... oh no, they wouldn't be opened by the family, would they? Because the family were, The elf looked around the room while scratching himself in the gusset of his pants with long, pointy fingers. Slowly, he rearranged items in the groin area of what I would kind of describe as green tights that were so tight that the rearrangement was, well, plain to see. He suddenly stopped with a shocked expression as he noticed a pile of pureed people on what was once the couch. His grizzled little face actually smiled, although it was kind of hard to tell. Santa was still busy with his list. The elf, without taking his eyes from the pile of bloody death, reached for Santa and poked him in the middle of his back with a particularly long, spindly finger.
Not now, Brendo. You can eat them if you want. I am full.
The elf looked at the pile again of flesh and cocked his head as though in consideration of whether or not he should eat the mess. And it did look somewhat like eaten mess due to the mixing of the bodies with the white stuffing of the sofa. He quickly decided not to eat the pile, although it was good to see him consider it, and poked Santa in the back once more.
Ho, ho, ho,
said Santa. Yes, said. He didn't actually laugh, ho, ho, ho. He just seemed to say, ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho,
said Santa as he turned in good humour to see what the annoying little bastard was trying to draw his attention to. As he turned, he saw the pile, and there was a moment as Santa tried to mentally compute what the fuck he was looking at. He took a step forward towards the... Can you describe him as a family? And stroked his beard.
Oh dear. Oh dearie me.
I was still sitting in the shadows with Fen, watching what would transpire.
My goodness, this just will not do,
escaped the lips of the man as he studied the mess. The elf seemed quicker on the uptake of what was happening and was scanning the room. Its evil little eyes were just black balls in its evil little head, and it looked as evil as fuck. Its evil face was evilly pale green, and when it spotted me evilly, it half opened an evil mouth with an evil sickening grin containing too many evil tiny sharp teeth. I'm getting the point, it looked a bit fucking evil. Fenrir and I both shuddered together in response just by looking at it. Its beady little soulless eyes met mine, and it spoke in a gurgly whisper. Santa, bad man, it said far too sibilantly. Now, there are a few times in life when I get creeped out by shit, but that little fucking thing was just, well, it was creepier than something from Creepyland when the wind is blowing from the creepiest directions on the creepiest day of the year in said fucking Creepyland. It was creepy. Both Fen and I did another uncontrolled shiver in response. The elf thing started making a hissing sound that sounded weird.
He's laughing,
Fen sent to my mind while turning to look at me. That was not a response I expected, to be honest. I sent back to him, and our combined discomfort became apparent. Santa turned slowly towards us and drew his half-moon spectacles down his nose to look over them at us both with bold, flinty blue eyes. His gaze crashed into mine with a power I had never felt before. It was almost like a physical blow, but what hit me was warmth and niceness coupled with fucking love and peace. I felt like I'd been velcroed into my seat by it and couldn't move anything but a little bit my eyes and my mouth.
Oh, it seems you're right, Predo, he said through a smile. But this is not a man alone, Predo. This is a wolf soul, and his pet is a psychotic human. These two are halves of a werewolf, Predo.
The Predo thing was now snarling like a little fucking ravenous creature looking at us. In our minds, we tried to combine, be a werewolf, be a werewolf, be a werewolf. Fen tried to enter in my mind, but nope. We were held tight in our poses against our wishes. Santa controlled the fuck out of us, but didn't seem to be trying. He just was.
Ho, 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 ho. No werewolfing here, my friends. We have done a little too much horror tonight already, haven't we?
He told us, rather warmly. Then, turning his huge back on us, he started to speak to the elf.
See, Predo, we need to help these people see the error of their ways. Ho, ho, ho. We need to teach them the true spirit of Christmas.
I started to rock back and forth in my seat. The horror of this concept. I was trying to get up and move. Fenrir was yelling and screaming in my head that he couldn't move either. Not the true meaning of Christmas. No, please, somehow, against all that power, that the glamour that he put on me, I allowed my mouth to work. No, don't you fucking dare! I yelled out. Santa now turned to face me, his smile gone.
Ah, very impressive, Will, he said. Usually people cannot do anything against my glamours. Oh, but I suppose you are not people, really, are you? He said with a smile. Can I ask what I should not dare to do? I need more information, Santa asked patiently.
Well, don't you dare try and fucking Charles Dickens Christmas Carol us, I told him. Santa pushed his glasses back up to the bridge of his nose and laughed.
Ho, 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 Predo, fetch.
And the elf leapt, snarling. That's the end of the New Year's episode. I have to genuinely thank everyone who has supported us this year. It's been an incredible year for the podcast. It's been an incredible year for making friends of the podcast as well. Please come and join us on different things. It's great to find a group of people with like-minded tastes and stuff. Facebook group is private. You can come on there and speak about more or less what you want. Big thanks to everyone who's helped out. It's been just fantastic. And I'll stop before I break down into tears. But you know what, guys? Do you know what? I love you.